Welcome to the Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode that we have geared and tailored for you that I think is extremely important. And the reason is it kind of gives you some guidance on kind of what it looks like within your children. So many kids are playing so many different dynamics in divorce. And the fortunate thing is Brighter Possibilities has created a way to help discern what roles kids are playing in the process of divorce. And we actually have them kind of whittled down to 3. And so I want to welcome Armando, who's going to help have this conversation with us and bring this information to you. Today's episode is the roles children play in divorce and how it shows up in your home. So this is something that I think is extremely dynamic. I've trained clinicians on this, and we have actually not put this out into the public, but we are excited to put it out there today to help people understand what they're looking for. I think we've just seen so many patterns, and we were able to say, this is what it looks like. Armando, I'm so thankful you're here again.
Thank you, Michael. Love to be here. Love it.
We love it. And would you say that when Brighter Possibilities was having a conversation about these patterns with kids, and we've talked in this conference room multiple times about these roles, did it make sense to you when we went over them, or was it more of a, I think we're missing something here?
I think it encompasses a lot of things that clinicians and just people every day see, but being able to put words to it in language so that we have common language about it makes it so much easier for people to just like, oh, that's what that means. Oh, that's what's going on. So it's not just, sometimes you can feel crazy with kids and you're like, what is going on with them? And being able to put not a label, but a name to it, it just kind of like, oh, okay, that's what we're talking about. It's helpful.
Right. And I think what I'm wondering is our listeners are going to hear these today, and they're going to probably start looking at their own kids in their own situation and then going, I've got this type of kid. I have this type. And I think it's okay. My fear is they mislabel.
Right. And I think the other thing to remember too is that these roles are very fluid, right? Like you can be one, you can be the other. With one parent, you can be one way. With the other, you can be the other way. And it's just a way to kind of understand what's going on. And I think that's the important thing with all of this.
Do you feel like kids play roles as a way of trying to figure out how to navigate a system that's broken?
I think that's the misnomer, is that I think people believe that families are dysfunction. And I think the reality is families function. Some families are running and others are just crawling. And so kids are just playing the role to make it function, even if they're just crawling. And I think that's part of what the role is in the family system. Because, I mean, how often do we talk about systems and family systems? We're talking about just the cogs of the family moving and going. And I think kids play a role in that to figure out, okay, how do I make my system work for me and for the family as a greater whole?
Do you think that's a conscious thing that kids think about, or do you think that's something they just come up with as they're navigating it?
I think they fall into it. I don't think any kid is honestly going to sit there and think, you know what, I think I'm going to be distracting today. I don't think they do that. No, I think what they do is they figure out patterns, and I think just who they are personally, like their personalities, lend themselves to fall into certain roles. But as we know, kids, their personalities change, especially through divorce and trauma and other things. And so we see that.
So can you tell our listeners what these 3 roles are? Probably just, what is it?
Yeah.
So what are the 3 roles that kids are playing?
So the 3 roles that in Brighter Possibilities we've kind of found that like we've talked about and really dissected and saw is we have the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
We have the distractor.
Right.
And we have the avoider.
Right. Yep. Just gatekeeper, distractor, and avoider.
Yep.
And you said something earlier that's super important for parents to remember. is these roles can be fluid.
Yes.
Kids can try one on and then move into another. And what I'm wondering is, do you think that kids land on the ones they think work?
Absolutely.
So they figure it out, and then they find one that works, and they go, okay, that's the one I'm going to play.
This is the one that works best for me. Yes.
That's how they do it. It's not, this is what works best for my family.
It's what works best for me. Yeah, it's like putting on what coat works for me today. This one works best for me.
The windbreaker,
The windbreaker,
overcoat.
the overcoat, and it, depending on the weather, it might change. You know, as people come in and out of the system, you get a divorce, custody changes, grandparents come into play.
And that represents the weather.
Yeah, that's the
The
weather.
weather change.
The weather
Oh my
changes the
gosh.
change of the system.
What a great way to remember that. I hope the listeners hear that. As they go through divorce, whether they're in the beginning, the middle, the end, post, it doesn't matter. Even contemplating it. Once the children understand the system is shifting, the weather's changing.
Yep,
So now they got to go back into their closet and go, which coat
works best for me.
Yep.
Mhm.
within the situation I'm currently in my family?
Mhm.
Okay, let's start with the first one.
Okay,
Let's talk about gatekeepers.
gatekeepers. I love
Yeah.
gatekeepers.
Tell me the gatekeepers.
So gatekeepers, these are, I like to think of them as like your peacemakers. They're your in between.
Yes.
Trying to make sure that everybody's okay, going from mom to dad or one party to the other party and really in
Mhm.
between. I will tell you, for me, gatekeepers, they kind of break my heart a little bit because they're in that, they feel so much of that pressure to fix everything sometimes. I had this kid in my office, it was a while ago. I guess he was like 10 or so at the time. And I remember asking him, I was like, is it your job to make your parents get along? Is it your job to fix this? And he looked at me with these big doe eyes and said, of course. And it just broke my heart because he was playing in between to try and make his parents get together.
You
to
knew
just
right away
fix
this
it.
gatekeeper.
Yeah, right away it's a gatekeeper because he would tell one parent one thing, he would tell the other parent another thing just to kind of smooth.
Was it
the
the
things
same
out.
thing or different things?
It was, my favorite is he would tell half truths, right? So he would tell part of the truth to one parent and then part of the truth to the other one. So he wasn't lying. I remember we had that discussion about lying is bad. And he said, well, I'm not lying. He's just not telling the whole story because he's trying to make sure things are smooth. Because he knew if I told dad this part, dad will be okay. If I tell mom this part, she'll be okay.
So is one of the key factors to remember for gatekeepers that kids are actually looking at the parents rather than really looking at themselves.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I have a conundrum. We had an episode with Jen where Jen says, let's say a parent comes home, has a rough day, stuck in traffic, something happened, right? Maybe the co-parent didn't respond for 3 days to something, but their, parents pissed off. Gets home, kid can tell parents pissed. And the kid goes, what did I do to make that happen?
Yeah.
Do gatekeepers do that too?
They do. They take on some of that. They take on some of that responsibility. They take on that emotional piece or even just the day-to-day piece, like the just getting things done piece.
So a way to define a gatekeeper is this is the kid that takes on the situation as if it's theirs,
Mhm.
but then they want to help the system maneuver. And the way they move the system is I'm just going to tell them what I know they need to hear,
Yes.
even if it's a half-truth.
Even if it's a half truth, even if it's a lie sometimes, because I just need to make it, I need to make it work, right? That's the goal. And even to the point where, you know what, I know mom and dad can't talk, so I'm going to be the messenger because it's just easier that
This
way.
is the kid that puts himself in the middle sometimes.
Yes. Sometimes they put themselves in the middle because it's just easier.
It's funny because in the court system, you see so many times where they'll send parents to these programs like Children in the Middle. And it's like the parents are putting the kids in the middle. But sometimes the gatekeeper is getting in the middle.
Yes. Sometimes the gatekeeper gets in the middle and it's hard to get them out. I had a case where this kid had been, I used to joke with the family. I don't know if it was really a joke, but I would tell them that I was like, you had 3 people in your marriage. You had you, your spouse, and your oldest daughter. Because
wow.
she was involved in everything. She knew the finances. She took care of the younger brother. Mom would vent to her about dad. Dad would vent to her about dad. And so when they started to divorce, she wanted to know about everything.
She wanted it.
Yeah, she wanted all of it. And so really, I mean, I remember sitting in my office with her and telling her, that's not your business. And she looked at me like I just told her that the earth was round for the first time. Like, she's like, what do you mean? Like she just could not conceptualize that. Of course I'm supposed to know this. I'm in the middle of this. And so
Was it hurting her?
And that's exactly what I was going to say. That's the issue with these gatekeepers is they start taking on issues and problems that are grown-up problems that they have no business doing, and it ends up hurting them. A lot of times I see a lot of anxiety in the gatekeepers because they're taking on all the extra stress from other people that's not theirs. They've got enough stuff going on.
Yeah. So one of the signs of the gatekeeper is oversharing, over-involving themselves in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of angst.
Mm-hmm.
Telling half-truths.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even telling two different things to each parent because it's what they want to hear.
Absolutely.
And this, what I've learned with gatekeepers, I think I taught a kid once, was the parents struggle knowing how to help them because parent one, right, whether that's mom or dad, parent one, we'll say, and parent two. Parent one is under one impression,
Mm-hmm.
and parent two is under a whole different impression, and they think the other parent got the lie.
Absolutely. And then they don't know, and it causes more communication breakdowns. And so what does that kid do? Interjects themselves even more to fix that. So they just dig themselves more in a hole. And sometimes parents, it's easier too, right? If I have a contentious relationship with my co-parent, I don't want to talk to you, but my kid is 17, 16. You know what? Tell your other parent that they're going to pick you up. Kind of throwing the responsibility of things onto the kid because it's easier, and it's not malicious
For the parent.
For the parent, right? They don't mean
right.
to do that. They don't recognize how it can impact the child, and the child takes it on willingly because that's the role that fits best for them.
Oh my goodness. Well, let me do this. I want to do some things that I want people to remember about each section, but I think I want to get through each three and then go back and go over the top three things to remember. So it's just easier, it's cleaner, I think, that way. What's the next one, Armando?
So the next one is the distractor. And I will tell you, I love working with distractors. They are the thermometer of the family. They're going to let you know how the family's doing. These are, oftentimes you hear them called like the scapegoat, right? They're kind of outwardly showing you where the family is. These are the kids that get into trouble. These are the kids that end up in juvenile detention, in trouble at school, behavioral problems. They're distracting.
They're acting out.
They're acting out.
Yeah.
They're distracting from the larger issue in the system. So the spotlight then becomes on them, not on the problems in the family or the divorce or the parents' contention or arguments.
And I know we don't usually ask a lot of why, we usually ask more what questions, but why would a child want to create, consciously or subconsciously create, maybe we need to ask you that too, if it's conscious or subconscious, but why would a child want to create or become a problem in their system? Like, what purpose does that serve?
So it does two things, right? One, it distracts from the parents. If we're arguing, right? If we're co-parenting and we're arguing and we have this other kid, well, when they get into trouble, what happens? We come together to solve this problem for this kid.
So the kid's really trying to bring the parents together by becoming the problem for the parents.
Unintentionally or intentionally, it becomes we were able to work together. When push comes to shove, we're there for that child.
Yeah, so
sometimes,
right? I had a case, and I was doing a parent meeting. So I'd worked with this kid for a while, and he was a gatekeeper. That's where he started. And he had transitioned into a distractor as things in the court, like you said, as things start changing through the court process and custody arrangements and possession access schedules, whatever it may be, the kids respond to it. And so this kid put on a different coat, weather changed, put a new coat on, became a distractor. And this kid started using drugs. And I remember the parents were both reaching out to me about their concerns. Well, the kid ended up in the hospital on a potential almost overdose. And so I had a parent meeting. The kid came to the meeting. They told me he was doing better and everything else. I remember just looking at the kid like, oh my gosh, it was a scary deal, right?
Yeah.
And when I asked this question, I said, I have to know something. I said, you look completely different when I met you. You seem much more happy. You seem like you're in a way better place. And he agreed. But was the most interesting part was when I said, when you were going through that hard time, you were in the hospital, what did your parents do that made you know, right, that they were there for you? Like what helped you the most? He said when he was in the hospital, both his parents were there. They were being kind to one another. He goes, I know they don't like being there. I know they don't even be in this room right now. But I experienced kindness from them. And I said, well, what did that look like? And he said, well, my dad goes, I'm going to go run down and get a drink. Can I get you something? To my mother.
Simple act of kindness.
That one act.
Yeah.
He's in the hospital, almost lost his life. in that one act of his dad asking his mother, I'm going to go get a drink. What would you like? It wasn't if I can get you something. It was, what can I get you? Like, I'm going to do this for you, this kind thing. And his mom said, I'm okay, but thank you for offering, which was another act of appreciation. And that kid said that made the biggest difference in the world. And I said, are mom and dad still doing that? Being kind? He said, yes. And I said, so how did that happen? He said, well, I told them. He told his parents, this is all I've ever wanted. And I said, so I have to ask you a hard question. Were you getting in trouble and doing all these things because you just wanted your parents to figure it out? He goes, yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he literally just admitted, I was causing a problem so that it forced them to focus on me and not each other. He wanted their love over their hate. Probably the best way to say it.
Sometimes it's contentious. Sometimes it's intentional. Like they mean to do that.
Right. The distractors.
The distractors, yeah. Sometimes they mean to do that.
So what are other things? I mean, that's a huge case. I've only had that once in all the years I've done this, over a decade. But what would you say are other things that you see distractors do?
So you see them, I have one case where this young man he started stealing. He was like taking the car without permission and breaking rules. I mean, just breaking rules to the point where it got to the point he was involved with some mess with this girl, and then the girl's cousins got involved, and they sent a text to him that said, we're just going to roll up to your house, and then a picture of a gun. And so mom saw that, freaks out,
Sure.
calls dad, and keep in mind, these two parents did not get along at all. I mean, I had conversations with, they had a parent facilitator, and then when they went to mediation, the mediator called me, and it was like, that's how they are.
They had a bunch of services.
They had a bunch of services, and nothing was really working for them. I mean, even in our office, they met separately. Like, they never came together with the kid. And
But they even went that far.
That night, dad came over. They had a very serious, meaningful conversation with him in their truck. And since then, they've been co-parenting, working together. I laughed with him. I said, wow, you messed up so bad that you got your parents working together. And he says, sure did.
And you messed up so bad you got it to work.
You got it to work. And since then, they are in communication. They're more flexible with time. And he even said, like, to this day, he said, yeah, they're working together. So the good and bad thing is that it does work, but we don't want it to get to that point where, you're in the hospital or there's threat of violence for it to be that point.
So the biggest issue with gatekeepers' parents is they believe that they have the truth, the other parent has the lie.
Right.
The biggest issue with the distractor parents would be what?
I guess that's a good question, Michael. I'm not...
And I'm asking that because I had a thought, and I don't know if I'm accurate. So maybe I'll tell you my thought,
Okay.
and you give me feedback. My thought is the biggest issue with the distractor parent is when they blame the other parent for the kid's behavior.
Oh, absolutely. I see exactly what
you
you're
know what I'm
saying.
saying?
I'm there.
So I'm like, because I've had distractor kids where the parent comes in and says, he's failing. He's doing this. It's because his dad is wanting more time with him. Or it goes the other way. He's failing. He's because mom's alienating me from the kid. And in reality, the kid's playing a role to pull a system together, but the parents are blaming each other for the child's behavior versus our child's struggling. How can we come together for the kid? Like you mentioned in that situation with you messed up so bad, you got your kid,
You got your parents together. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think the danger is when there's blame, right? And that's something that we see all the time when we start throwing blame around. And what I've told distractor kids a lot of times is, I need you to kind of not put the spotlight on you. Because if you want me to do the work with your parents and you want this better, I need you to do well for a little bit so we can turn the spotlight onto your parents. And then we can do the work. And then you don't have to get in trouble all the time. That would be nice for everybody, right?
Exactly. Maybe. Well, so now I'm wondering if the biggest hurdle for parents with gatekeepers is distrust. And the biggest hurdle for distractors is blame.
I love that.
I don't know. I'm wondering now. See, as we talk through this, and I think we should explore that.
I think
with our parents and our families that we currently have with those roles, is we should say, what's the hardest thing about having a half-truth? Or what's the hardest thing about feeling like one of y'all has a lie? And see if they say that I don't trust my co-parent. And maybe that's what's hindering them helping the gatekeeper. And then maybe what's hindering them helping the distractor is the blame.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're just blaming the other one for the kid's problem. So they're just saying, no, this is our kid's issue.
This is not...
regardless of what... Yeah, maybe we contribute to this, But rather than me blaming you, you blaming me, we have a responsibility to help them.
To work that.
Yeah. So I'm going to write those down. I have not. Now I'm really interested. While I'm doing that, go ahead and give us the third one.
So the third one is the avoider. So this is a kid who at all costs will try and avoid the tension, the problems, the issues in the family system.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about the avoider is it can be a good and a bad thing, right? Because you can avoid
Really?
in a positive way, right? Where I'm in school, I'm in sports, I'm National Honor Society, I'm packed full, jam full of different activities,
Right.
because I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
Now the other is you can avoid by isolating, running away, staying away, right? Like I'm not going to connect with anybody in the family. I'm avoiding in a different way, in an unhealthy way.
Got it. So and I think that's important to tell the listeners about the avoiders is it can look a couple of different ways with avoidance. Of the three, is there one better than another?
Not necessarily.
Wow. So if you see a gatekeeper, you can't say, "Oh, I have the worst of the three," or the distractor, "I have the worst of the three." You have to look at it from that perspective.
Right. I think parents would say the distractor is probably the worst of the three in the middle of the situation. But
All the kids responding, I'm sure they would.
Okay.
Actually, now I think about it, that's how the parents present them,
they do.
right? But I don't think they present the kid as the problem. They present the other parent as the problem, and it's causing this issue on the kid.
And with the avoider too, you can present that as, well, if our family was so bad, why would our kid be doing so well? Right?
Okay,
We can't be
give me
that
more.
bad. Well, I mean, we can't be that bad if, our son is getting straight A's and
Involved
is
in all these
these
clubs.
activities and clubs.
Yeah.
Well, when you talk to the kid, well, why are you involved in all that stuff? He's like, because I don't want to be home. It's just easier for me not to spend any
And
time
they're
at home.
clueless. They just see the kid as
Mhm.
he's active, he's a participant, he's involved in so many things, he's student council, he's
Which-
sports.
Again, is better than, I'm going to go drinking and drugging out on the street in the alley. But again, it's still avoiding. I'm still not dealing.
I told a set of parents just like a week ago or something. I don't remember when it was, but it was not that long ago. And I literally looked at both parents and I said, I think you're both going to lose this kid.
Oh, that's...
Because the kid was avoiding both of them. And so dad was seeing it from the perspective that mom had more than he did. So here's the fair unfair, right? Which we had another episode on. But the idea of mom has more than I have. So he's looking at quantity versus quality because those things don't always match. And then mom was looking at it and going, you see it that way. Yes, the time where they stay is our home. But in reality, I don't see our kid either. She literally tells that, I don't see him. He's involved in so much stuff. And that's when it hit me. And I said, guys, I think you're both losing your kid.
Yep.
And man, it would talk about just like an epiphany moment.
Yeah.
For both parents going, wait, I thought about it. And I said, are y'all expecting to go to his wedding?
You know what's interesting, Michael? Have you found that those avoiders, when they're in that situation, when they go to college or they leave the system, do they come back?
Oh, I don't have enough cases to go on, but I will tell you I have one. They come back and boy, they run again. So what they do, the ones that I've had, is they come back into the system and it's almost like they're dipping a toe in the water.
To see.
Yeah, they temp check it. Is it the same? Is it different? And as soon as anything that looks like the old pops up, the kid finds a way right back out.
Because they're already out of the system.
They're already out. And they find the piece of being out of it. So they go, of course, as soon as they sense it again, they run back out. So it's sad to me because I feel like most of these kids want to be in the system with their parents. They want to be a part of their family unit. They want, what do kids usually say they want from their parents?
They want love. They want them to get along.
Yeah,
Peace.
Peace.
Peace is usually the big one.
That's the word. I mean, literally, if you could just say, hey, parents, I'll sum it up for you. All these roles, this is what they're hoping to create.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with that. I think if there is peace, I think that's the underlying thing of all of this. If there can be peace, they don't have to put on that coat. I mean, do you need a coat if it's not raining?
No?
So if it's sunshine, rainbows, puppy dogs, nobody needs a coat.
Aha. What a great... There you go, guys. The weather does change, but when it does, understand what they need, fulfill. And guess what? When you keep creating the sunshine and rainbows and bringing the peace, your children don't have to wear coats. Heck of a deal. So let's do this for these parents. I don't know if kids are listening, but I think parents are for sure. What if we give them the top 3 things to remember in each section? If I say, hey, if you have a gatekeeper, remember these 3 things. Okay, best thing you can remember as a parent. What do you think? We can do that for a second?
We can do that. We can break that down.
Let's kind of work that, and we'll kind of start ending this deal. For gatekeepers, top 3 things to remember.
they're stuck in the middle.
Remember, your kid is in the
In
middle.
the middle.
Okay. If you have a gatekeeper, kid's in the middle. Remember that.
Mhm.
Okay.
What do you think the next one is?
Oh, well, in my experience with gatekeepers, I think the one other thing to remember is that you don't have the whole truth. You don't have it. You have a version of what you think is true. Okay. So remember that being curious and continuing conversations, even with the co-parent, is extremely valuable. Getting both sides
To
of
put it
that coin,
together.
to piece it together. Yeah. So I think that's one of them. What about the other one?
I think the other one is how much pressure those children feel when they're in the middle.
Yeah. Remember, there's pressure.
There's pressure.
If you have a peacemaking kid, they're trying to make peace, right? They're telling you half truths. What you're really saying is, remember that kid's under a lot of pressure.
There's a lot of pressure. They're negotiating, right?
Yep.
They're negotiating to warring parties.
Yeah. You only have a half truth,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be workable with the other parent to say, I know I only have a piece of that puzzle. I got to piece it all together. But you said another one. I thought there was.
They're in the middle. I think we said they're in the middle.
That's one we missed.
The
They're in
one
the
we
middle.
missed. They're in the
Remember,
middle.
they're in the middle.
They're in the middle.
This is the kid in the middle. Okay. Top 3 things to remember for distractors.
I think for them is the behavior has purpose.
Behavior has, what a great way to say it. Do you think all behavior has purpose?
I think all behavior has purpose.
Oh, so that means no one's
I-
one's behaving
I gotta-
without purpose.
I got to cite my source there. That is a William Glasser quote. That's reality therapy. I know that we're solution focused therapists, but I gotta give credit. I don't need somebody coming for me later.
No one's coming for you. I
I
don't
was
think
like, oh.
Armando. I don't think anyone's coming for you. But I will say I appreciate you saying that. I didn't actually hear it from reality therapy.
Oh, okay.
I heard it at a conference that all behavior has purpose, and if you maintain that belief, then that means your job is to decode.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the other things to remember, that if behavior has purpose, what are we decoding? What's really going underneath? Like, let's see what else is going on with this kid. Yeah, we're having all these behaviors. What's really behind
And
that?
that's where we as therapists try to help these families do that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes these parents don't like what we've decoded.
No.
Unfortunately.
No, sometimes you have to look at yourself and be like, oh, wait,
And that's the
is
part.
that me?
Yeah, and I think I think a lot of parents don't realize as therapists, we're always having to check ourselves so that we can stay in that neutral ground to give you feedback.
Absolutely.
It may not be what you want to hear, but we're designed to do that for you, right? To help you help your system. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so what are the 2 other things for distractors?
So we said behavior has purpose.
Yes.
There's always something underneath.
Yep.
And then what do you think the last thing you remember is?
For a parent, in
Yeah.
my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that for distractors, the most important thing to remember is that your child is not acting out because they want to, right? That your child's behavior is really designed to get you to do things
come
together, to come
Yep.
together. So remembering that it's about coming together for the child, not coming at each other because of the child,
But coming together for the child.
for the child. Yeah.
Could you imagine if they came together before, like that first signs, that first parent-teacher conference?
Oh my gosh. I think you nip it right there. I think you do.
Yeah.
But I mean, do parents look at it from that perspective?
Well,
Because I think they look across them and go, well, they had to go to their dad's last weekend. So
That's a
Yeah.
problem. But
Yeah,
that's
so
something to remember, I think, for parents, is that when you get called to that parent-teacher conference or you get that phone call from somebody, going to it collaboratively at the beginning, because you might save you a trip to the
hospital. Yep. Or even
or
40
jail.
or 50 sessions of counseling that people
40 sessions or jail.
I had a parent ask me, how long is this going to take? What's great? Right out of the gate. First question in therapy, court ordered. How long is this going to take? My question back was, how long do you want it to take?
How much are you willing to work?
Bingo. Because if you think if we do the work and we really get down to it, how often do you think they come here?
Then
What are
I'm-
our averages?
Yeah.
What are we doing with families that really come here to work?
Oh, we can get them in and out within 4 or 5 sessions max, really.
I was going to
If
say
we're
3 to
really-
5.
Yeah.
That's what I've
really.
seen. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been keeping track. I think it's like 3 to 5. But the ones that aren't working or blaming or mistrust or whatever, all that stuff that's in there, that's in the mess, then I see that it takes us much longer.
This might be a conversation for another podcast idea, but just kind of how many times do you have the same conversation? The same problem kind of keeps popping up over
Ooh,
and
yeah,
over
that's
again.
a good one. Because I think parents
something
say
to put
that.
in our back pocket for
I like it.
next time.
Yeah, maybe they'll comment and tell us,
Mhm.
yes, I need that
I
because it
need
keeps
that.
coming
Mhm.
up. What do I do? Yeah,
What do I have
that's
to remember?
bingo. So let's go back to the third one. What do they need to remember? So for avoiders, top 3 things to remember.
It can look different, right? It doesn't always look bad.
It can look good.
It can look really good.
Yep. Got it. What else?
I think, again, asking yourself, like, am I spending time with my child?
Where's the time going?
Where's the time going?
Yeah.
And again, some of that is normal, especially with teenagers. Like, they're going to want to hang out with their friends more than parents anyways. But what's the rationale behind that also?
I think the third thing with this is really this is where you check in a lot.
Oh, haven't
You have an
checked in.
avoider,
Yep.
right? So I think you check in a lot. It's like, hey, I hadn't seen you much, or you seem to be real busy with your sports. Man, I sure do miss you. Is there something am I missing something here? Because you're really busy.
A good idea with that is making sure that you have like dates or times where you spend time with your child.
You schedule it.
Schedule it. Like I always call it mandatory fun.
Mandatory.
We're gonna have
fun.
mandatory fun.
There you go. Mandatory fun. I like that. I'm gonna actually write this down. Schedule mandatory fun.
We had a lot of mandatory fun growing up.
That's awesome. Love it.
My dad made me and my brother have mandatory fun. We played a lot of Monopoly Friday nights before I could go out.
Isn't that fun? And see, you remember it.
I sure do.
Exactly. All right. So let's wrap this up. For our listeners, I want to just let you know to remember these three things. You have three roles kids play in the divorce, right? It's the three coats that they wear when the weather's changed. You have your gatekeeper, your distractor, and your avoider. Your gatekeeper is your peacemaker. Okay. Your distractor is your kiddo that's typically creating problems, consciously or subconsciously, but they're trying to bring you together by making problems. Make sense? So they're literally creating an issue. Your avoider is your kid who gets really busy, stays away, trying to get away from the system. It's their way that they maintain their peace, right? And they would say probably even protecting their peace. But this is a way that those kids do that, is they avoid, and they're just constantly avoiding situations. When you see those three any of those behaviors playing out, I want you to be cautious to make sure that you understand all three of them, because kids are fluid. And so sometimes they'll switch and you may not know what to look for, how that happens. And this is where therapy, especially family therapy, can be so powerful to help you understand that about your children. So I would want to make sure that parents take that away from here. I'd also encourage you guys to follow us on Instagram at Brighter Possibilities FC. Again, that's at Brighter Possibilities, F as in family, C as in counseling. And that will be Instagram. If you're looking for us on Facebook, it's Brighter Possibilities Family Counseling. Again, Brighter Possibilities Family Counseling, if it's Facebook. We're so honored to have you. We're going to have so much more content for you. Please let us know what you're looking for, if it's helping you, if it's not helping you. I want to hear from you. So thank you so much. Armando, thank you for being here again.
Absolutely.
We have
Michael,
so much more to talk about.
Anytime. I love it. I love talking about this stuff. If some of this helps somebody, it's all worth it.
Yep.
It's all worth it.
It's just another way to do this,
Absolutely.
to help. And so I think this is a great point. I like to encourage you guys to keep moving forward. Thank you.